we'll get started. So last class we were discussing about the magnetic properties of a material, right? I'm sharing my screen. So I prepared a slightly different document. Which will be easy for you guys to understand. So you can make a note of it. Last week I told you, right? This last class I told you this very, very important topic, because this is the basis on which all the instruments are designed. For example, if you need to know why a soft iron core is used in a transformer's core, why not a hard iron, what are all the properties it has, so you need to understand this concept. So if there is any doubt, get it clarified. Okay, so as I told you in the previous class, the name of the topic is magnetic properties of a material. So it's a magnetic properties of a material. So what are all the basic terms that are associated with it are, we need to understand what a magnetizing field is. We need to understand what magnetic induction, similarly intensity of magnetization or magnetization. We need to understand magnetizing field intensity. We need to understand magnetic permeability, relative permeability, and the last one is magnetic susceptibility. Also, we will look at certain relations among these quantities. So if any of the quantities is having a relation, we will see how they are interrelated to each other. I hope it is clear, right? So listen. So the first term that we need to understand is magnetizing field. Okay. So what do you mean by magnetizing field? So as I told you in the previous class, what is the objective? Every material is made up of atoms. Since it is made up of atoms, they have electrons revolving in a particular orbit. Hence, they have magnetism associated with them. And the question is all about the intensity of magnetism that the material has, that can be improved by using external field. Right. For example, I have a material, or I will call it as a substance. I have a substance in my hand where it is not able to exhibit any magnetism. Okay, it is not able to exhibit any magnetism. But what exactly is present inside the substance? Every substance has what is present inside it. So if I take the substance, atom. So it has atoms. Due to that atoms, there is a small magnetic dipole that is present in it. And how are the magnetic dipoles present in it? It can be in some random way. South pole, north pole, south pole, north pole. They can be something like this. Okay. They will be in some random manner, just like how we saw the same concept in the case of a dielectric. So dielectric also has small dipoles present in it in such a way that the dipoles are randomly arranged. Right. Now, what is our objective is, I can say, so if there is a question like this, can this material exhibit magnetic properties? The answer is no. And the reason for it is, the magnetic dipole moment is present, but it is not aligned in a proper way. For example, the magnetic dipole moment for this dipole, let's say it's in this direction. For this dipole, it is like this. For this dipole, it is like this. So, since dipole moment is a vector quantity, since similarly these are all not aligned together, they cannot contribute to the magnetism because they might get cancelled out. Anything can happen, right? They are not going to get added up directly. But is it possible for me to magnetize this material? The answer is yes. But how will you do it? By placing it in a
magnetic field.
I place it in an external magnetic field. So when you place it in an external magnetic field, let's say the direction of, for understanding purpose, I'm taking it as uniform. Okay, it need not be uniform. It can be a non-uniform magnetic field also. So once this is there, since the arrow mark is like this, can I say that this is the north pole and this is the south pole? Am I right? So
Yes,
north
sir.
pole and south pole. So what will happen to the dipole that is present inside? So when a dipole is placed in external magnetic field, it experiences a torque. As a result of which, they get aligned in the direction of magnetic field, south pole, north pole. Similarly, you will have a south pole, south, north, and south, north. I hope this point is clear. Similarly, it will be present everywhere. Okay. Assume there will be close to each other. For understanding purpose, I'm drawing it as a bigger diagram. That's it. It's a zoomed version. Okay, like this, many such dipoles will be there, such that the dipole moment of the first dipole is in this direction, second is in this, third is in this, fourth is in this. Like this, you have n. There are n such dipole moments present. But the difference between this and this is, here the dipoles are aligned. Here they are not aligned. Okay. So since the dipoles are getting aligned, what is going to happen is this material, yes, now it might exhibit magnetism. So it will exhibit magnetism, but again, its strength depends on the chemical properties of it. Okay. So whatever is the, according to the periodic table or whatever it is, it depends on the material's property. How much strength it has and all those things varies. But yes, if the question is about magnetism, yes, there will be magnetism exhibited by it. Okay. Now, what we are going to do in this particular topic is, we are going to see what are all the terms associated with this kind of a scenario. Somebody's mic is on. Can you please switch it off? Okay. So, are you guys clear till this point? So, this external field, which is used to magnetize a material, is what is called as magnetizing. That is what is called as a magnetizing field. Okay. So, that's what is given here. See, when a magnetic material is placed in a magnetic field, when I say magnetic material, I'm talking about the substance which needs to get magnetized. When it is placed in a magnetic field, a magnetism is induced in it. Okay. So the magnetic field that exists in vacuum and induces magnetism is called as magnetizing field. See, you need not write the exact definition. Like you need to understand what the field which is able to generate or induce magnetism in a magnetic material is what is called as magnetizing field. So the example is given. For example, what we can think of is, you can consider a solenoid. You need not be toroidal solenoid also. You just consider a solenoid which is carrying current I in a vacuum, which is carrying current I and is placed in vacuum. So if the solenoid has n turns per unit length, then what will you say about the magnetizing field? Then what will you say about the magnetizing field? So it will be equal to mu naught into n into I. I hope you're able to understand. So this is one such example. It is not a general formula for magnetizing field. Don't get confused, okay? There's not a general formula. There is an example formula. In this case, which material is providing the necessary magnetizing field? In this example, it is the solenoid, or you can say it is a toroidal solenoid. So both have the same value. I hope it is clear. Okay, here what you're doing is you're using an electromagnet to magnetize a material. Similarly, you can think of using a permanent magnet also. The same thing will happen. That time, the permanent magnetic field is what is called as the magnetizing field. Means the field which has the capacity to magnetize a material. That's what is magnetizing field. Okay. So when you apply the magnetizing field, what is happening to the material? The magnetic field is getting induced. So that's why the second topic is magnetic induction. So what does this magnetic induction have to tell us? So let's read it out. So as shown in the figure, suppose the toroidal solenoid is wound around a ring of a magnetic material. Okay. Under the influence of B naught, where is B naught? This one. Under the influence of B naught, the magnetic moments of the atomic current loops of the magnetic material tend to align themselves with or against the magnetizing field. Okay. So have this word against in your mind. There are certain materials where the magnetic dipole moments will get aligned in opposite direction also. That we will see later, but have that word in your mind. So what I'm trying to say is, due to the external magnetic field, that is the magnetizing field, B naught is equal to mu naught into n into I, what has happened inside? There is a magnetic dipole moment that is created, right? So due to the magnetic dipole moment, there is a magnetic field created inside. That's what they're trying to say. So under the influence of B naught, the magnetic moments of the atomic current loops, see that's what is the magnetism of the material. Current loops of the magnetic material tend to align themselves with or against the magnetizing field B naught. So as a result of which, what will happen? This gives rise to a net current on the surface of the material and is called as the magnetization surface current, IM, as shown in the figure. Means there will be a surface current that is going to flow on the material, which is called as IM. So what is the name of this IM? It's called as magnetization surface current. Okay, so it's not at over. Wait. So what is this magnetic induction all about? Magnetic induction is like this. See, for understanding purpose, let me explain with this example. What exactly happens when you place a dielectric in an external magnetic field? E naught is like this, and there is a dipole which will get aligned like this. In such a way, this end will be negative charge, this end will be positive charge. If you try to write the net electric field inside, what will you write it? E naught in this direction and
E induced in the opposite direction.
very good. E induced will be in the opposite direction, such that what is the net electric field that is present? It is E naught minus
E
E.
naught minus E.
Accepted. So this is what is happening. The same thing will happen here. I told you, everything is similar to electric field. So instead of electric field, you are placing it in a magnetic field B naught mu, which is equal to mu naught Ni. Let's say if you place it across a solenoid, due to which there is a magnetic field that is getting induced inside. So if I say the vector sum of the external magnetic field plus the magnetic field that has got induced inside, if I have to give a name to it, that name is what is called as magnetic induction. So what is magnetic induction all about? The external electric field present plus the net magnetic field which is getting generated inside the material. Okay, so observe this. So this is the definition of it. The total magnetic field inside the material. Total means sum. The total magnetic field inside a magnetic material is the sum of whom? Sum of the external magnetizing field and the additional magnetic field that is produced due to the magnetization of the material. And that term is what is called as magnetic induction. Is it clear till this step? Am I clear about this? Is there any doubt?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I'll proceed. So this is the theoretical definition. What are they saying? The total external magnetic field press, that is the total magnetic field inside the material is what? Is the sum of the external magnetizing field and the additional magnetic field produced due to the magnetization of the material. That is the output of that material. Okay. It has an alternate definition also. What is the definition is? Observe. So the magnetic induction may also be defined as, make a note of it, write it down. Because there are certain derivations which are based on this, I suggest you to write it down. Okay, especially this definition. It may also be defined as the total number of magnetic field lines of force crossing per unit area normally through a material. I'm repeating it. Is also defined as the total number of magnetic field lines of force crossing per unit area normal through a material. That is the flux divided by the area. And that is the reason why. So we know the SI unit of magnetic induction is Tesla because it is sum of the magnetic fields only. Magnetic field is measured in Tesla. But the other unit for Tesla is Weber per meter square. That is nothing but flux per unit area. That's what this alternate definition says. Okay. So when you try to write flux Tesla in terms of Newton, meter, and ampere, this is the formula that comes out: Newton, meter inverse, ampere inverse, or Joule, ampere inverse, meter, power minus 2. See, these are very, very important, at least now, because these can be asked in MCQs. They will say, which of the following is not an SI unit of, let's say, magnetic induction. They'll give you this unit, this unit, this unit, and they will give something like the Joule, ampere, power minus 2, meter, power minus 2. Then this will be wrong. Okay. So a question can be framed in any manner. Are you guys able to understand? Is it clear till this point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you also need to make a note of this particular definition. Bm, that is the magnetic induction, is equal to mu naught into N into Im. What is Im? Magnetization surface current. It's a magnetization surface current. So make a note of this also. So I'm proceeding to the next concept. The next concept is called as magnetizing field intensity. Don't get confused between magnetizing field and intensity. It is similar to electric field and its intensity. If you recollect the definition, what does electric field mean? Electric field is a region around a particular charge where you bring another charge, it can experience force. Whereas, what is electric field intensity?
The strength of the field.
Yes, it is the amount of force per unit charge. So strength of the material, intensity means strength, right? So the amount of force that is existing per unit test charge is what is called as electric field intensity, and that is what we have learned it as a mathematical formula. In a similar way, here you have magnetizing field and its intensity. Magnetizing field intensity is given by the symbol capital H. Okay, so what it means is, this also write it down. The ability of a magnetizing field to magnetize a material medium is expressed by a vector H. What does H stand for? Magnetizing field intensity. Okay. So I'm repeating it. The ability of a magnetizing field to magnetize a material medium is expressed by a vector H, which is called as the magnetizing field intensity or magnetic intensity. Both the names mean the same. Okay, these names are something similar to this. Specific heat capacity and specific heat, they both are same. No? In a similar way, magnetizing field intensity or magnetic intensity, they both are same, and it is represented by the symbol H. So I hope it is clear. So if you see all the definitions, the first part will be speaking about the theoretical way of approaching it. The second part will always, so there will always be an alternate definition. So the second part mainly speaks about the mathematical way of approaching. What is it? So it may also be defined as, write it down, as the number of ampere turns flowing around the unit length of the solenoid, which is required to produce a given magnetizing field. I'll explain what it is, but write it down. It is defined as the number of ampere turns flowing around the unit length of a solenoid required to produce the given magnetizing field. Okay, so the meaning of it is, observe, ampere is measured for current, turns, number of turns around the unit length by L. Okay, I'm repeating it. Ampere turns per unit length, that is required to produce what? That is required to produce the necessary magnetizing field. So what is N divided by L, guys? All N. That is the number of turns per unit length multiplied with I. This I is nothing but Im. We have written, no, what is Im? Magnetization surface current. So H is equal to N into Im. I'm just making a small change. I hope it is clear. So the ampere turns concept is defined only for a solenoid. Okay, since we have taken the example of a solenoid, we are able to give an alternate definition to it. So H is equal to N into Im. I hope it is clear. Can I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then what did we see B is equal to? B naught is equal to mu naught into N into I. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. There's not Im, it's I only. because Im is the output. I'm extremely sorry about this. This N into I only. I is the amount of current that is flowing through the solenoid. I'm sorry. So please correct it. It is a number of ampere turns flowing around the unit length of a solenoid. So through the solenoid, what is the current flowing? It is I only. So, but we know for a solenoid, the magnetizing field, the external field that is getting generated is B naught is equal to mu naught into N into I. But N into I can be replaced with what? But I can replace N into I with H. So can I write B naught is equal to mu naught into H? I will write it again. See. So capital H is defined as the number of the ampere turns per unit length, and this is written as N into I. And the magnetizing field of a solenoid is mu naught into N into I. This N into I is written as H. From this, H is equal to what? B naught divided by mu naught. That is what we saw in the previous class. So I would have directly given you the definition. H is equal to B naught divided by mu naught, and this was the document. Okay. So now I'll share this document only. So there's a simpler one to understand. So B naught is equal to mu naught into H, or H will be equal to B naught divided by mu naught. Remember this expression. This is a very, very important expression. This one and this one, because the concept of hysteresis is explained using this mathematical formula. Okay. Similarly, you need to have an understanding of all the definition. So the dimensions of magnetic intensity are ampere L inverse, because it is a number of turns per unit length. Sorry, ampere turns per unit length. Number of turns doesn't have any dimensional quantity. So A into L inverse. Similarly, its SI unit will be ampere meter inverse, which is also equal to, if you write ampere in terms of Newton, Tesla and everything, it will be Newton meter power minus 2 Tesla inverse, or Joule meter inverse, Weber inverse. So this is the formula. This part you can have a look at it later. Are the 3 points very clear? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the fourth one is called as the intensity of magnetization. Intensity of magnetization is represented by the symbol capital M. Okay. So this I've told you, and this is a very, very important one. This is the output that is getting generated. Intensity of magnetization means the extent to which a material has got magnetized. Okay. So when a magnetic material is placed in magnetizing field, it gets magnetized. This is a known fact. The magnetic moment developed per unit volume of a material when placed in magnetic field is called as intensity of magnetization, or you can simply call it as magnetization. So this I have explained in the previous class. There is a dipole moment that is getting created. If you take a unit volume of the substance, then magnetization is defined as the amount of magnetic dipole moment that is getting created divided by the volume. Or you can say the magnetic dipole moment per unit volume is what is called as magnetization. This will tell you about the extent to which a material has got magnetized. So for a material which has higher magnetization, is it going to be a strong magnet or a less magnet? Lesser strong magnet. So I have M1 and M2. I'm putting it like this. M1 is greater than M2. So which has got magnetized to a high extent?
M1.
Obviously, the first magnet, right? Means it is going to have more amount of magnetic dipole moment for the same amount of volume. Means its density is more. It can produce more number of field lines. Okay, that is why this quantity is very, very important for you to understand. Shall I proceed to the next one? So this has certain formulae. Make a note of everything. So this is the first formula. M vector is equal to small m vector divided by volume. Small m vector represents the magnetic what? Dipole moment, and V represents the volume. Okay. Similarly, since the material has got magnetized, on the surface of the magnetized material, what is present? You have surface magnetization current. If Im is the surface magnetization current, area A and having n turns per unit length, okay, small n turns per unit length, then the magnetic dipole moment developed per unit length of the solenoid will be what? So what is the basic formula for a magnetic dipole moment? So the basic formula for a magnetic dipole moment is n into I into A. I hope this point is clear. Right. So here, what is the current that is getting generated on the surface of it? It is Im. But what are they asking? Magnetic dipole moment developed per unit length, So capital N divided by L will be equal to small n into Im into A. Is this clear, guys? So small n into Im into A will be equal to what? This is what?
M.
This is the magnetic dipole moment that is getting generated across the solenoid on the cross-sectional area is set up in the solenoid, right? And that is happening because of the surface magnetization that has taken place. So can I write capital M is equal to what? If we treat it in terms of magnitude, then it is small m divided by capital B, accepted. So small m is nothing but n into Im. 1 minute, guys. 1 minute. There is a small correction in this. Is it magnetic dipole moment? Is it another? Magnetic dipole moment is only n into I into A. But what have you written? You wrote it as small n into I into A. Means it is a magnetic dipole moment per unit length. It is per unit length. Okay. So don't get confused. When you're writing small m, it is capital N. When you're writing m by L, it is small m. Okay. So when I write it like this, then what is the magnetization formula telling me? So magnetization is equal to small m divided by V. So what is small m? So small m divided by V means I can write small m divided by volume can be written as area into length. Can I write it like this? Area into length. But what is m divided by L? It is small n into Im into A, the whole divided by A. This and this will get cancelled. Small n into Im. What is this? So this is an other formula for. There is another formula for what? This capital M stands for?
Intensity of
Intensity
it is
of
magnetization. So one important point to be noted here is there is a similar formula which gives you the product for number of turns per unit length and current. What is it? Just now we saw. This one.
Magnetic index.
The magnetic field intensity is N into I. That I stands for what? I is the current which is flowing through the solenoid, whereas N into Im is the intensity of magnetization, where Im is the current which is flowing on the surface of it. Are you guys able to understand? So this I is the input current, this Im is the output current, because magnetization is the output. Magnetizing field intensity is the input. So are you guys clear with these two? Is there any doubt? Because I'm going to write a very important expression here. There are 1 mark problems asked based on this also. You should not forget, nor you should not be with a confusion like how it has come. Now we are going to the second definition. So what does the second definition say, guys? So second definition is magnetic induction. So what did I say magnetic induction is? It is the total magnetic induction is total. You can tell in your own words. I don't want exact book definition also.
Of magnetic field.
So it is a magnetizing field intensity plus the magnetic field which is created inside the material. Am I right? So when you talk about magnetization, can I say it is the external magnetic field that is present, which is magnetizing material, plus the magnetic field that has got created inside the material. Bm stands for the magnetic field that is created inside the material. See, as the total magnetic field or magnetic induction B inside a magnetic material is the resultant of magnetizing field and the field Bm which is produced due to the magnetization of the material, can I write B is equal to B naught plus Bm? But what is B naught? B naught is mu naught into H. Why did we get H? Because it was N into I. That N into I wrote as H. Similarly, Bm will be nothing but mu naught into capital M. It will be mu naught into capital M. So if you take mu naught outside, it will be H plus M, and this is a very, very important formula. So what is that we have written? Magnetic induction is equal to, in fact, if you want me to be more specific, you can put an arrow mark. If you don't want to write it in terms of arrow mark, you can write it as H plus M. This is very, very important, and you need to make a note of it. Where mu naught into H is what? H is input or output? This is input, and this is the output. See, if there is any confusion, please ask immediately. Okay. All the words will be similar. I hope you guys made a note of it. Done? Shall I move on to the next one?
Sir, 1 minute.
Yeah, tell me. You want to make a note?
Yes, sir.
Right. Done?
Yes, sir.
So we have seen 4 definitions. The next is magnetic permeability. So as the name suggests, permeability is the measure of the extent to which a material can be penetrated or permeated by a magnetic field. Means how much allowance the material is giving to the external magnetic field to enter through it. That is what is meant by magnetic permeability. So there are 2 things. Okay, magnetic permeability, it can be either in free space, or each magnetic material can have a magnetic permeability. Like how we defined epsilon naught and epsilon. Do you guys remember this? What is epsilon naught? It is a permittivity of
Free space.
free space. Whereas what is epsilon?
Relative
Permittivity
permeability.
of the material.
No. Relative permittivity is ER. That is dielectric constant. It stands for the permeability of any material other than air or vacuum. For example, if there is water, water has some permittivity associated with it. Okay. If it is placed across some wood, wood will have some permittivity associated with it. Means it depends on how that particular material is interacting with the electric field. In a similar way, instead of epsilon naught, if I write mu naught, what will you call it as? Magnetic permeability of
Free space.
free space. That's why the value of that is what? 4 pi into 10 power minus 7. But here the topic is not about magnetic permeability of free space. Rather, it is a magnetic permeability of whom? Of the
material.
magnetic substance, yes, of the material. Okay. So each material will allow the magnetic. See, I told you one important point, right? So what should happen? This material should be the dipoles will get aligned in this depending on the extent to which this particular substance is allowing the external magnetic field to go through it. Means it will give some permission to it. The extent to which it is permitting the material for these kind of dipole moments to get created will define the permeability of that particular material. So each material will have different permeability. Accepted? So that's what this topic is. So the magnetic permeability of a material may be defined as the ratio of magnetic induction to the magnetic intensity. Where did this formula come from? So where did this formula come from is, we saw the very first formula. What was it? Mu naught is equal to B naught divided by H naught. Do you guys remember this? Where is it? sorry, H is equal to B naught divided by mu naught, not H naught. There is nothing like H naught. So mu naught is equal to B naught divided by H. Then what will mu be? Mu naught is the permeability of free space, means the material also should get magnetized in the free space. If it is getting in some other medium, it will be B divided by H. Are you guys able to understand the difference between both? They both look similar, but they are different.
So can you explain once again, sir?
See, B naught is what? It is the magnetizing field, which is mu into N into I. Sorry, mu naught into N into I. This is accepted. So B naught is equal to mu naught into N into I. N into I is nothing but H. So H will be equal to B naught by mu naught. We have already seen this formula. So how will you write mu naught is equal to B naught divided by H? I just made a rearrangement, mathematical rearrangement. But so this mu naught is related to whom? It is the permeability of a free space. But here, what are we trying to speak about? Magnetic permeability of a material. So when I say magnetic permeability of a material, it is the extent to which it has got magnetized. That is the magnetic induction. So what is magnetic induction? It is not only B naught. It is B naught plus Bm. That's what the previous one told, no? B naught plus
Yes,
Bm. So it is the extent to which the material has got magnetized divided by the amount of input you have given. That is a magnetizing field intensity. So the difference here is when you're writing about mu naught, it should be B naught by H. Whereas when you're writing about mu, remove that naught. When you remove the naught, B stands for magnetic induction. That is what I'm trying to say. I'm just telling you a method.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
understood, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
SI unit of mu will be what? Magnetic field is measured in Tesla. H is measured in ampere per meter. Okay. So Tesla meter ampere inverse. So that is going to be the formula for magnetic permeability. This we already know from here itself. Tesla meter ampere inverse. Right? Is this concept clear? So make a note of it, guys. I suggest you to write because these topics are very confusing. Write it down so that you will understand. So if you are done, I'll move to the next topic. So I'm moving on to the next part. So the next part is called as relative permeability. So relative permittivity is called as dielectric constant. See, in physics, relative means difference or division. Okay. According to the grammar of physics, if you want to know what is the meaning of relative, relative is a comparative study. Okay. For example, you would have learned about relative velocity. When I say relative velocity, it is v1 minus v2, something like this. Relative velocity of 1 with respect to 2. If I ask you, it will be 1 minus 2. Similarly, if I ask you what is relative density, there you would have told it is the density of substance by density of water at 4 degrees Celsius. So here it is ratio, whereas the same relative here is a difference. So whether you talk about difference or ratio, it is always a comparative study. In a similar way, if I talk about relative permeability, the meaning of it is I'm trying to compare the permeability of a material I have in my hand with a known quantity. So I'm trying to compare the permeability of a given material with a known quantity. What is the quantity which we already know? It is mu naught. So this mu divided by mu naught, and it is given by the symbol mu r. Just like how we have relative permittivity or dielectric constant, relative permeability doesn't have any other name. It's just called relative permeability. That's it. So in some of the books, you will see mu will be written as mu naught into mu r, and that reason comes only from this. Are you guys clear with this? So mu r is equal to mu divided by mu naught. So make a note of it. So what will be the dimensions of this?
No dimension.
No dimension.
Obviously, no dimension because it's the ratio of the same physical quantity and it has no units as well. So mu is equal to mu naught into mu r. This is also a very, very important expression. Now, what you can do is when you go to the 6th chapter, we would have derived the self-inductance formula for a solenoid. So the self-inductance for a solenoid, you will have a particular value where mu naught into something will come. They would have given another point saying that if the material is any other material other than the air medium, then instead of mu, they would have written it mu naught, they would have written it as mu into something. And this mu will also be sometimes written as mu naught into mu r. And that formula comes only from this. Okay, I've told you the topic. You can go and revisit the 6th chapter where there is a concept where we would have derived the self-inductance and mutual inductance of a solenoid. I would have shown you the derivation only when it is an air medium. Okay. If the concept is extended, if the medium is not air medium, it is some other medium, then you can write it as mu. Instead of mu, you can write it as mu naught into mu r also. It is because of the definition of relative permeability. Okay. Is it clear?
Sir.
Okay. I'm moving on to the next one. So there are 2 more points. So this is the last definition, and the next one is a relation. That is magnetic susceptibility. This I already told you in the previous class. What is susceptibility? It is the extent to which a material can get easily magnetized. That is the vulnerability of a particular material, right? So it is the ability of a substance to take up magnetization. So it is defined as the measure of the ability of substance to take up the magnetization when placed in an external magnetic field. Okay, that is a theoretical definition. I told you, you will have a theoretical definition and you will have a mathematical definition. So mathematically, it is defined as what? It is defined as the ratio of intensity of magnetization to the magnetizing field intensity. So I gave you an example of efficiency also. Efficiency is output by input. So chi m will be equal to the extent to which a material can get magnetized. That is the output divided by input. So that is the formula. So how do you define it? It is the ratio. Whenever you see a line like this, it is a ratio of whom? The ratio of the intensity of magnetization to the magnetizing field intensity. Is it clear? So the last point is the relation between magnetic permeability and magnetic susceptibility. This is also very, very important. Okay. So according to the second equation, what is magnetic? So because I need susceptibility depends on which two physical quantities. One is magnetization and the second is magnetizing field intensity. So if I take B, according to the second definition, you remember this, B is equal to mu naught into H plus M. Right? Let me call this as equation number 1. And according to the fifth equation, can I write B is equal to mu into H? Because mu is equal to B by H, B will be equal to mu into H. And we also know that B is equal to mu into H. This is the second. Is there any confusion on this? Is there any doubt? Guys, I need a confirmation. I'm not able to shout. Somebody at least give me a confirmation.
Okay.
Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So mu H will be equal to mu naught into H plus M. I'm using equation 2 and equation 1. So I'm going to divide with H on both the sides. It will be mu naught into 1 plus M divided by H. Okay, a simple mathematical operation. So mu is equal to mu naught into 1 plus M by H. But what is M by H? susceptibility. Yes, mu naught into 1 plus, I can write it as chi m. So this is one such expression. This can be one such expression. Similarly, mu can also be written as mu naught into mu r is equal to mu naught into 1 plus chi m. So this and this will get cancelled, which implies mu r is equal to 1 plus chi m. This is also another expression. Okay, these two expressions are very important because, see, most of the years I have at least seen a question which is based on this. At least there will definitely be a 1 mark question where you will have to apply either the third equation or fourth equation. And you can easily score it. So I suggest you to make a note of it. Okay. So if you're done, let me know.
Completed, sir.
No, write it down. So these are all the important definitions. Right. So okay. So I'll proceed to the next topic. So these are all the terms that we need to know. So why we have discussed all these terms is to understand, based on all the properties that are exhibited by each material. If you see, for each material we have to analyze all these physical quantities, especially the extent to which the material is getting magnetized and all those things. So when you're doing all those things, based on how they are responding to the external magnetic field, the materials are classified as paramagnetic, diamagnetic, and ferromagnetic. So that is what we are going to see now. Just a minute, I'm sharing my computer screen. I'll show you a small activity. So are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. See, there is a small activity that is done in this video where you will be able to see how a particular paramagnetic material, ferromagnetic or diamagnetic substance will respond to the external magnetic field. Okay. Based on that, we'll prepare a table. Observe this. So I'm playing this. The topic is 3 types of magnetism. See, you're able to see a magnet in his hand, right? The red color one, and in these small tubes, he has taken different materials, and across, and these materials are subjected to the external magnetic field. See what will happen to them. So what is happening? He has a magnet, right? He has tried to bring the magnet. He is not touching the water, but what is he doing? He is trying to bring it close So what exactly is happening? Is it getting attracted or repelled?
No,
Repelled.
sir.
So it is getting repelled. So for the external magnetic field, the material is getting repelled. One minute. Sorry. Sorry, I think I was there. So did you see what happened?
The screw was getting magnetized.
Magnetized, but he removed the magnet. What happened? He has removed the magnet.
Magnetic property was still in the screw.
Is still there, no? So the magnetic property is getting retained in this material. That property of the material is called as magnetic retentivity. Okay, I'll just give you the definition. So that's called as what? Magnetic retentivity. Have this in your mind. Okay. So what does magnetic retentivity mean? The material retaining the magnetic property of it even in the absence of external magnetic field. We'll see about this later. So this is what kind of a material? Is it a ferromagnetic or a paramagnetic substance? It is a. So what kind of substance is this? Ferro, para or dia? It is a ferromagnetic substance because ferro means iron.
Paramagnetism is a similar effect, except that it's much.
So one point to be noted is, did you observe that ferromagnetic substance will be attracting the materials towards them? The similar thing will happen due to a paramagnetic material also. So they both will exhibit a similar property, but the only difference that is going to exist is the extent to which the material can get magnetized. So which one will have a stronger magnetism? Which one do you, sorry, ferro will have. So paramagnetism also, it will have an attractive property. Observe what will happen.
Weaker and temporary. Aluminum is a good example of
So what is happening is aluminum metal getting attracted or repelled. Observe.
paramagnet.
Getting attracted.
Attracted. Same thing happened with iron also. There also attraction was taking place. Here also attraction is taking place. But there it is stronger, here it is weaker, and here it is temporary. Means the retentivity of a paramagnetic substance will be less. 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 Did you please? Less.
And so is oxygen, which
So here is a liquid oxygen. See what will happen.
is attracted to magnets. Here, I have a few milliliters of liquid oxygen, which sticks to the magnet.
So observe what is happening to it. Is it getting stuck to the magnet or is it getting repelled?
It's getting attracted.
Attracted. Okay. So it's a paramagnetic substance.
Gadolinium oxide and cupric sulfate are good examples of paramagnetic substances. Cupric sulfate is a salt that can be picked up by a magnet. Diamagnetic materials are exactly the opposite of paramagnetic.
So what do you think will a diamagnetic substance do? Will it attract or repel? So initially when brought it close to the water, what happened? Did it repel or attract?
It got repelled.
Repulse.
A diamagnetic material, and the reason for that is happening because of the concept of pairing of electrons. Okay.
They are
Yeah,
always repulsed. They would rather die than be in a magnetic field. An important example of a diamagnetic material is graphite. This specially made pyrolytic graphite
So this is a pyrolytic graphite. See what is going to happen to it.
held by a magnetic field. Don't be confused. This is not static electricity or eddy currents. Graphite is repelled by a magnet, always, both by the north and south end.
Okay. So this is what is happening.
Pyrolytic graphite, grown crystal of black carbon at low temperatures provide exact opposite
So there is a
repulsion
magnetic
wherever
levitation
magnetism is
concept.
present.
So here also it is getting repulsed.
They are perfect diamonds.
So these are all the properties exhibited by a These are the properties exhibited by a diamagnetic material. Okay. This is what is happening. So observe, when you try to draw a diagram, you have a north pole and you have a south pole. Let's say you have a glass material which is suspended in it. So due to the, we know that the magnetic field is away from the north pole and it is towards the south pole. And what do you think will be happening to this glass if it is a diamagnetic material?
There will be no field lines near the glass.
Yes. So what will happen is it will try to align itself in the direction of decreasing magnetic field. So which material will try to align itself in the direction of decreasing magnetic field?
Diamagnetic.
Diamagnetic.
Whereas a paramagnetic or a ferromagnetic substance will try to align itself along the direction of magnetic field because it wants more magnetic field to attract. Whereas here diamagnetic materials do not want any magnetic fields because they want to repel. Okay.
To check whether an object is diamagnetic or paramagnetic is to see how it aligns itself in a magnetic field. Diamagnetic objects like glass will rotate to avoid magnet.
See, he's trying to bring a magnet. There is a glass which is suspended. See how it, see what will happen to it.
The glass is diamagnetic. Twist to get to the loop.
So what is it trying to do? So the magnetic field, look at my mouse. The magnetic field is like this, but the magnet is trying to align itself in the direction of weaker magnetic field.
But aluminum rotates
But what will happen to aluminum?
It will get aligned along the magnetic
See
field.
what it has. Yeah, that's right.
typical of a parallel paramagnet. On the periodic table, we see that aluminum has 3 valence electrons.
So aluminum has 3 valence electrons.
So what does it take to understand what it means for something here?
So when it has 3 electrons in the valence shell, it is going to have obviously 3 electrons in the valence shell. And how many will be paired? So for pairing, you need 2 electrons, one in the clockwise direction and the other in the anti-clockwise direction, right? Spin of electrons will take place. So 2 electrons out of the 3 will be paired and 1 will be unpaired. Okay. So if you look at the chemical reason behind why a material is having or a material has become paramagnetic is due to whom? It is because of the
Unpaired electron.
it is because of the unpaired electron. Okay.
Paramagnet.
Whereas what will happen in a diamagnetic material?
There will be 2 unpaired
All electrons are paired.
Electron will be paired. That is why it is not able to create the magnetic dipole moment. That is the reason. Because so that's the concept which was explained in the first class. Electrons are revolving, no, but we know that electrons also have clockwise and the anti-clockwise spins associated with them. So when the pairing is taking place, one is clockwise and the other is anti-clockwise. The unpaired one will have a spin in a particular direction, due to which the property exhibited by that material which is classified either as a, so based on the property exhibited by the unpaired electron, it is classified as a paramagnetic, but based on the reason why there is pairing of electrons taking place, the material is classified as diamagnetic.
Diamond.
So it will be like this.
Unpaired electrons that make this
So it's an sp3 hybridization.
unpaired electrons enable it to become magnet. And it's that unpaired electron that is free to be magnetized and attracted by the magnet. But what about a diamagnet like water? Yes.
So we saw that water was a diamagnetic substance. It has all paired electrons. So 2 electrons are paired, and here there are 2 lone pairs of electrons, but still they are paired, right? So that is why it is exhibiting a diamagnetic property. I hope you guys are able to understand.
It has
Yes, sir.
Yes. So this is the reason. Okay. Beyond this, there is nothing. Now what we can do is, based on this, we will prepare a table. So you guys will tell me whether the value is going to be positive, negative, all the susceptibility concepts, everything we can see based on this activity. Okay, just a minute. Now see. So listen. So we have a table. Just a minute. So we have a table. 1 minute. Yeah, you guys able to hear? No? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So I was saying we will see the property, and to the property we'll see a diamagnetic, paramagnetic, and a ferromagnetic substance behavior. So in the effect of magnets, in the presence of external magnetic field, when a magnet was taken close to water, water is a diamagnetic substance, what happened to it? Did it attract or repel? It was repelling. The question is, did it happen very spontaneously? That is, was it a very fast process or a slow process? So experimentally we saw, right? So since it's a slow process, there is a feeble repulsion exhibited by the magnet. Okay, so what kind of a question they will ask is, the material which gets repelled feebly by external magnets, what kind of a magnetic material will it? It will be a diamagnetic. Okay. Next, what will happen to a paramagnetic substance? It is attracted, but there is a feeble attraction. Whereas what happened with respect to a ferromagnet? It got attracted, but it was very strong because it has the property of retentivity, right? Similarly, when you place it in an external magnetic field, so what will happen to it? So it will acquire feeble magnetization. What will happen to a diamagnetic substance is, diamagnetic substance will acquire feeble magnetization in which direction? In the opposite direction of the magnetizing field, because it has to repel. So if the magnetic field inside the diamagnetic substance is in the direction opposite to the external magnetic field, then that kind of a substance is diamagnetic in nature. Whereas what will happen in a paramagnetic substance? It will acquire feeble magnetization in the direction of the magnetizing field. Okay. Same thing will happen for ferromagnetic. Only difference will be, here it is feeble, here it is strong. Every point is the same. Okay. So when you place it in a non-uniform electric field, what happened to the glass when it was placed in between the magnetic field? It tried to align itself in which direction?
Weaker magnetic field
It will
direction.
try to align itself in weaker magnetic field. So tend to move slowly from stronger to weaker parts of the magnet field. Sorry. Similarly, what happened to a paramagnetic? It tend to move slowly only from where to where, from weaker to stronger magnetic field. Whereas a ferromagnetic substance, it will also tend to move from a weaker to stronger, but it is a very quick process. Okay. So in a uniform magnetic field, what will happen? So if suppose it was a uniform magnetic field, the freely suspended diamagnetic rod aligns itself perpendicular to the field that we saw already in glass. Whereas a freely suspended paramagnetic substance aligns itself along the field. Ferromagnetic substance also does the same. Okay. So I hope these 4 points are clear. No doubt, right?
No doubt, sir.
Okay. I'm going to the next concept, that is susceptibility. Now tell me so susceptibility means the extent to which that material can get magnetized. Is diamagnetic substance supporting the magnetism?
No.
It is not supporting the magnetism. So it has negative susceptibility, but it is not a very high value because everything is happening in a feeble way. Right? So here the susceptibility is small and is negative. So its value will be between -1 to 0. So what kind of questions can be asked is, this magnetic susceptibility of a material is -0.5. Name the type of material. So it is going to be a diamagnetic material. Similarly, what will happen with respect to a paramagnetic material is, here also the susceptibility is small only because of this feeble attraction. And it is positive where it is between 0 and some positive number. Okay, they give you a very small positive number, then you can say that particular material is paramagnetic in nature. Whereas ferromagnetic substance, what will happen? Obviously, it has more susceptibility because it can get magnetized very fast. So its susceptibility is greater than 1000. Are you guys able to understand this? So this is an important point. I've seen questions based on this. Okay. Next is relative permeability. So relative permeability of this material is between 0 to 1 for a diamagnetic substance. For a paramagnetic substance, it is greater than 1 and less than, it is slightly greater than 1. Okay, 1 plus epsilon, where epsilon is some positive number. Whereas for a ferromagnetic substance, it is again greater than 1000. Okay. So since mu r is equal to mu divided by mu naught, when mu r is less than 1, I can say mu is less than mu naught. When mu r is greater than 1, I can say mu is greater than mu naught. When mu r is greater than 1000, I can say mu is very much greater than mu naught. So that is the value of permeability. Okay. Next. Effect of temperature. So here what happens with respect to a diamagnetic material is, it is independent of temperature. Okay. So susceptibility is independent of temperature. Whereas when you talk about a paramagnetic substance, its susceptibility is inversely proportional to temperature. And remember, this temperature should be measured in Kelvin. It's an absolute temperature. Okay. So chi m is inversely proportional to temperature. What is the meaning of it? Means if you have a paramagnetic material which is already magnetized, when you try to heat the substance, its magnetic property is lost or gained? Decreased. So it's lost. Okay. Similarly, here also the susceptibility decreases with temperature, where it is given by the formula inversely proportional to T minus Tc, where Tc is called as the Curie temperature. So there is a temperature called as Curie temperature. Means beyond that Curie's temperature, what will happen is the material will get completely demagnetized. Means its magnetic property is completely lost. Okay, so which material's magnetic property will get lost on heating? It can either be paramagnetic substance or a ferromagnetic substance, whereas a diamagnetic substance is independent of the temperature. Okay, now tell me guys, When you remove the magnetizing field, that is when you remove the external magnetic field, what will happen to a diamagnetic substance? So it is immediately lost, means it will easily get demagnetized because it is already getting feeble magnetization only. So it is easy for it to lose its magnetic property. Similarly, what will happen to a paramagnetic? As soon as the magnetic field is removed, its magnetization is also lost. Whereas what will happen with a ferromagnetic substance, for example, that nail, which was
It
attractive,
retains.
it retains because it has retentivity. Okay. Similarly, variation of M versus H, this I will explain the next class. This also I'll explain the next class. Now, physical state of the material. So for a diamagnetic substance, the physical state can either be solid, liquid, or gas. Similarly, for a paramagnetic, it can be solid, liquid, or gas. Whereas for a ferromagnetic substance, it is normally in the solid form. And the examples for ferromagnetic substance are bismuth, copper, lead, silicon, nitrogen at STP, water, NaCl, all these things. So similarly, you can read these also. So why I told I will explain it in the next class is because you see M and H, see hysteresis is exhibited only by ferromagnetic substance, and that is a completely different concept. So this is a loop. I need to explain how this loop has come. So it will take some time. Okay. So accepting these 2 points, 10 and 11, is there any doubt from today's session?
No, sir.
Okay. So you guys need to practice it again. See, this part alone, I'm suggesting you don't take it casually because there will be a lot of confusion existing, and this has an importance in other chapters also. So I suggest you guys to write it down again and practice the definitions one. It will maximum take 20 minutes. That's it. Okay, do that. So next class we will see hysteresis effect and Earth's magnetism. With this chapter is over. Okay. So that's it. So 1 minute. Okay. You guys can leave.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.